Scissortail is the statewide organization for traditional dance in Oklahoma. We organize a variety of dance events and workshops. For more information, you can visit our website at scissortail.org. My name is Louise Siddons. I'm a caller and I'm a Scissortail board member, and for several years now I've been organizing our caller workshops. During the pandemic, I began inviting guest speakers to those workshops because they went online. And they're usually limited to Scissortail members, callers, and emerging callers in our community. But this month's guest was way too exciting to keep to ourselves. And the topic of today's workshop, which is caller websites, is more timely than it's ever been. So we thought we would open it up to the dance community as a whole. So I want to say thank you, first of all, to all of you for being here. We had an incredibly positive response to this workshop, and possibly it will inspire me to continue making them public as the months go on. Before we begin our conversation, which will be structured first as an interview style conversation between me and Colin, and then we'll open it up to all of you to ask general questions, I wanted to introduce my co-host, Rebecca Valencia. She's also a Scissortail caller, and she's helping today by monitoring the waiting room and the chat and generally being available to help with technical issues. So if you have questions, you can put them in the chat. She'll see them. You can chat directly to her if you are that kind of facile with Zoom instructions and techniques and things. But if you just put it out there, we'll see it. Rebecca, you want to say hello quickly so people see your face and know who you are?
Hello, quickly. I'm Rebecca.
Excellent. Thank you for helping out. It is always good to have a couple people in charge, especially when I'm going to be talking to Colin at the beginning.
What do you mean by that?
What do I mean by having multiple people in charge?
Just because you're talking to me, huh?
You're just that compelling, Colin. I can't pay attention to more than just you. All right, so some Zoom orientation. Like I said, Rebecca can help if you get lost. We've had some conversation about it already, but you may have already found your chat at the bottom of your screen, or maybe at the top or the side, depending on your device. If you click on that, you will see that some people have already been chatting. Rebecca is putting useful information in there periodically, etc. Please use that chat unless, as Colin mentioned, you have a question that is immediate. If you're not understanding something that we're saying, or if you want clarification or expansion of something that Colin has said, then you can unmute yourself and just interrupt us. This is a pretty informal workshop, and we'd rather answer the questions straight away than discover an hour later that you had a question and missed a whole chunk of the conversation. Do stay muted. If you accidentally unmute, Rebecca or I will mute you again. So do try to stay intentional about your use of the mute. Colin Hume doesn't really need an introduction, particularly if you took the opportunity to look around his website before this workshop, or if you attended his recent 5 Things webinar. You already know a lot about his work as a caller, musician, choreographer, and more. So today we're going to talk about his website, which is a treasure trove for callers, musicians, dancers, and historians. I am pretty sure that Colin has been doing everything folk related since before I was born, but I did notice that on his website he's cagey with his own dates, so I can't prove it. But I'm going to start by asking him for a date. Colin, can you start by telling us when you began to create your website and what motivated you to do that?
Well, it was a long time ago. The first version that I can find on the archive is 2001. And I expect I built it to become better known. The same reason I publish books before websites. I hope it's not just vanity publishing, where people will go to a company who will publish their novel and possibly send copies to reviewers and so on. But basically, writers wanted to see their novel in print and were willing to pay for it so they could give their friends free copies and brag about it. Maybe callers see websites in the same light these days. It's certainly a cheaper option.
And how did you decide what content you would include? Did you have models in mind?
No, I can't say I did. It just evolved gradually. I didn't have any master plan, and I was learning HTML and CSS as I went along. I still am. Actually, no, there wasn't any CSS when I started. So, in case you're not technically minded, HTML is hypertext markup language, which has been the language of the web since it started. CSS is cascading style sheets, which is where you say that headings are purple and that images have a border around them and whatever. Some people think I should just include stuff about dancing, and I disagree with that. This is me, this is my website. So things like my playwriting and our house and garden are part of who I am. And obviously the computer programming, I love my work. So there's some talk about that. I would like to think that people who don't know me would get some idea of me as a person by looking through my site. And I know that several people have said that my writing style sounds just as I do when I'm talking, which I'm very pleased about.
Yeah, several people have submitted questions about that choice to have content that includes your work and your home and other aspects of your life. And when I asked if you had models in mind, I think I was partly wondering if you were aware of other callers who were interested in having a web presence, or if you were thinking about other individuals who were really creating sites, who were seeing the World Wide Web as a way to convey information about themselves to new audiences.
Sounds a very grand scheme, but no, I wasn't. I was just doing my own, and I didn't really look much at other callers' websites.
Do you know if there were any?
No, I don't know, sorry.
Yeah, no, I don't know either. And someone else asked if there's any content that you think should be avoided when you're making a website.
Well, if you mean to avoid controversy, certainly not. I'm always willing to speak up about what I believe in. I know some people won't like it, but anytime you do or say anything in public, you're putting yourself up there to be shot at. The alternative is never committing yourself to anything. That's not my style. However, I do try to have a homepage that doesn't say I'm wonderful. And at least I put mine in the first person, so it's clear that it's not just my opinions. I'm sorry, I'm getting confused. So it's clear that it is my opinions. Many people think that saying I'm wonderful is over the top, whereas saying Joe Blogs is wonderful is acceptable. And then you think, but it's obvious that he wrote it himself. Would you like to see an example of a website that I consider to be over the top?
Sure.
Okay, let me put my glasses on and go to the complicated stuff of sharing my screen. This is Mike Ruff's website. Can you see that?
Yes, indeed.
And at the top it says, great live music, brilliant barn dances. And then under the pictures, it's multi-talented, multifaceted, heritage and entertainment, just the best. Now, I'm not going to say on my website, I'm just the best. I say what I do. I say, you may find me appearing at the following folk festivals. Mike has all these photos of himself on his homepage. I've got that one. And there may be a couple of others later on for a specific purpose. But I don't really want to show lots and lots of pictures of me and a thing saying I'm wonderful. That's my viewpoint. I will now switch that off if I can.
And I think that gets to the question of audience. Who did you imagine would be looking at your website when you started it? Because it's clear that Mike expects to be getting gigs. He's advertising himself, right?
Yes, he is. I think I was probably aiming it more at dancers and callers than at getting gigs. I've done hundreds of barn dances in my time, and eventually I got fed up with it. It was good. I learned a lot. You get callers who call for the clubs and who are very good at it and who would not have a clue how to deal with a group of complete beginners. So I learned a lot from that, but eventually I thought, I've done enough of this. So I wasn't really looking for bookings. So I think it was callers and dancers that I was aiming the site at, and still am.
And have you ever had, I know people asked you before about privacy concerns. Have you ever worried about what you put on your website in terms of uh, not giving people too much access to your own information?
I'm sorry, I don't know what you mean.
Well, in terms of thinking about content that you would not include or that you think should be avoided, a lot of people these days are concerned about the internet in terms of privacy rather than in terms of controversy. So I'm wondering if you've ever taken anything down or not put something up because you're worried about privacy concerns.
No, I never have. I think about what I'm going to say. And occasionally Renata, my wife, will say, you shouldn't say that. And I think about it. But in terms of privacy, no. My address is on my website. I know some friends of mine say, Colin, you've got this page showing your wonderful house and garden and what's in the house. And then you've got a page of your bookings saying when you're not going to be there. And they think that's a bit risky. I mentioned that on the 5 things that Darlene was doing. And I say now it says on the bookings page, Renata usually stays at home with her cats. So the burglars know that they're not going to just get an empty house. But no, I don't think I'm really worried about privacy. Renata is worried about people looking over the hedge or the fence or looking in from another house. And no, it doesn't bother me.
And then another question that was submitted ahead of time that kind of relates to content was, can you say more about your decision to include not just your own dances, but other people's on your website? How do you decide, once you've opened it beyond your own creations, what to include and what to...
Oh, it's purely my decision. I'm putting there dances which I think are good and I want to get to a wider audience. Some of them came from a time when I used to write a column in English Dance and Song, which is the magazine of EFTAS, the English Folk Dance and Song Society. And at that time, there were no dances in it. So I put in a couple of mine and I said to people, send in your dances. If I think they're good, I will publish them. And I did. And so some of those are now on my website. Others are just dances that I've danced. I think that's really good. And it's not published anywhere. Why not? So then I would write to the composer and say, would you like me to put this on the website? And mostly they say, oh yes, I'd love to. So that's it. But it's purely by choice. They may send me other dances and I may think, no, not so good. I will stick with the one that I've chosen and I'll just keep that.
And do you ever get people writing to you asking if you'll put their work on your website?
Not that I can remember, but it's possible. And if they did, I would probably I would try to give them a straight answer. I'm well known for giving straight answers to straight questions. So I might say, well, it flows perfectly well, but there's really not anything special about it. It's like a lot of other dances. There's nothing that grabs me. There's nothing that says, oh yes, that's the one where you do so-and-so. And so I would at least try and explain why I don't think it's significant enough for me to put it on my website. And people may hate that, but then it's my website.
We were talking about using the web as self-promotion, and Suzanne Ford asked a question about other formats of promotional materials like brochures and things. Have you ever engaged in self-promotion? Would you consider your books, for example, self-promotion? And yeah, like in what contexts do you find yourself engaging in a kind of in the obligation to describe your skills in a more promotional sort of way?
Well, certainly my books are promotion. Yeah. And I'm guessing that's the reason why I got booked to call in Pinewoods in 1992. Because when I spoke to some Americans, I mentioned John Lagden, who was the most famous Playford caller in England for many, many years. And they said, never heard of him. And I said, well, who have you heard of? And they said, well, you, Pat Shaw, Catherine and David Wright, Ken Sheffield. And I thought, oh, yes, all the people who publish the books, because the books get to the States before you do. And so that's why people very rashly thought, if he writes interesting dances, he might be a good caller, we'll book him. So yeah, that's self-promotion. Other than that, no, I don't have any cards that I hand out. When I started calling, it was mainly barn dances. No, it was totally barn dances. I was working with a band called Kafoozlum, who had just been formed, and Peter Jenkins, who was the leader, asked me to be their regular caller. And I said, oh, yes, okay. And it was great practice for me. And he would do promotion, he would have leaflets and so on. But that was just promoting the band. And as far as the barn dance crowd are concerned, the caller is just a member of the band. So that wasn't anything I was involved in. We did run a couple of dances at Cecil Sharp House, and that was to promote both the band and me as a caller. Other than that, I can't really think of anything, no. I gradually got better known. I started getting booked at folk festivals, and really that's where people found out about me. And then they in turn started booking me for clubs.
So we're
No
talking
one else is rushing in to disagree with anything I'm saying, which I find amazing. Don't think if you really don't agree with anything I'm saying, you can speak up. You don't have to. Feel free to agree with me, but you don't have to.
So we're talking about your books. You've also published CDs or collaborated with people publishing CDs. When was the last time that you published something in physical form rather than online? And do you envision that being something that you continue to do or that you'll do in the future? Or do you think that web-based media are taking over?
The last CD I published was called Spring Blossom by Dampier's Round in 2008. And that was the band's idea rather than mine. I just said I would like some input into it and I will go halves with you. And they were happy to do that. So no, I'm not planning to do any more physical publishing. Before that, my booklet, Squares with a Difference, Volume 2 in 2004. No, I don't feel the need to publish any more CDs. A lot of them, well, certainly the first 3 or 4 CDs or LPs were to go with my books. But other people have now published some of my tunes. Bare Necessities, I've recorded a number of them. And I don't really feel the need. And as for publishing books, well, no, it's so much easier to put them on the website. Okay, if you want to make money out of it, then I suppose you've got to publish the books. And it's true that some callers do like a physical book because it's not suddenly going to disappear, and websites can disappear. But the great thing about putting it on a website, to me, is it is instantly available to the whole world. And also, if I find a mistake or some improved way of doing it, I can just change it on the website and it's there, rather than having to send out a slip of paper with corrections to my books, which I used to do.
You mentioned if you're trying to make money, you publish books, and Eric Black actually asked, have you ever broken even or done better than that? Does anybody in the folk dance world approach publishing with an eye to actually making income?
I doubt that anyone does it to make income. I have made a profit on my books, and I think I've made a profit on my recordings. But it's an awful lot of work. Nobody would go into it as a commercial venture. With the books, I basically laid it out exactly as I wanted it and gave it to the printer and said, print 1,000 of these. It's more name recognition. I've not heard of anyone who's made money out of it. There may be people, not that I know of. As for selling CDs, I've now converted all my recordings to MP3 files and I sell them on my website, and I've only sold a handful. I imagine a lot of callers who use recorded music hold it on MP3s on their computer or other device, even if they bought it as a CD. It's just much more convenient to have your dance instructions and the music in one place linked together, which you can do using my dance organizer program, for instance, which we'll probably talk about later.
We will. We had a question about it, so I'm sure we will.
Okay.
So Bowen just asked in the chat about this idea of segregated content, and sort of jumping back to that briefly, the question is, people recommend that you actually create different websites for the different aspects of what you do. So looking at your website, they might say, oh, you should have 3 separate domain names or something for these 3 different things. And it seems to me that advice and that question goes back to everything that we've been talking about so far in terms of almost a philosophy of where dance fits into the rest of your life, and is this a professional endeavor or is it a personal one? Do you think that your choice to structure your website the way you have is a philosophical choice?
Yes, I think it is. I'm saying this is me. There are many aspects to me, but it's all me. I used to work with a man who was called Bill at work and was called William at home. And he clearly saw himself as 2 different people. And I don't. I'm Colin Hume. Whether I'm calling a dance, writing a tune, lecturing on computer programming, playing with children, it's still me. So I find it perfectly normal to have all of this on my website. I don't see any advantage to me of having 3 separate websites. Because, and okay, most people come to my website because of the dance, I know. Nevertheless, I don't want to think of them, I don't want me to think of them as just someone who writes dances, because that's not me. I write children's musicals, I write plays, I do other things. I'm a computer programmer, it's all me. And if they really think that people should be put into small categories, then I disagree with them. It's like some people see me as a Playford caller or an English caller, as you would say in the States. Some people see me as an American caller. And the ones that I like are the ones who see me as an all-round caller, because that's what I am. But people do like to pigeonhole you. They think if they put you into a particular space, then they know that that's what you are. And no, I'm not. I'm more than that. So it is a philosophical choice, and I'm going to stick with it.
Do you think it also reflects maybe a dichotomy in the folk dance community, either in the UK or worldwide, between, and I don't mean to pick on Mike Ruff, but I'm going to, between people who really see it as sort of this commercialized endeavor and a career, and people who see folk dance as something that's fundamentally community-based and maybe see it in that more holistic way as part of life?
Yes, I think that's true. And Mike, as you say, is clearly aiming that website at getting bookings, which is fair enough. I'm not saying you shouldn't do that, but that's a totally different philosophy. I don't know what he does for a living. He may have a separate website for that, for all I know, or it may be that he's employed by a company and they have a website and they will have a page that talks about Mike Ruff in terms of his job for them, and that's absolutely fine. But as far as I'm concerned, I'm not doing it to get bookings. I'm doing it because it's something I believe in. And if you happen to book me because of the website, I'd actually be surprised. People book me because they know me and they've seen me call somewhere and they think Colin Hume's a good person to book. So yeah, if you got that approach, then certainly go ahead and just write a website which says, I want bookings. Yeah.
Allison Thompson asked, and I'm going to modify this question a little bit because I think we can all predict at this point how you would answer it. She says, how do you increase traffic to your website, and have you made specific efforts to do so? And I suspect you're going to say no. But I do wonder if you have noticed that when you add certain content, traffic has gone up, or if there are parts of your website that are more popular than others.
Yes. The standard answer to increasing traffic is have lots of good content which people link to. And I hope that's what I've done. I've never worried about search engine optimization. I think if people want to find me, they will. If you Google Colin Hume, my website comes up first. And there are lots of other people called Colin Hume, including, I think, a Marvel Comics superhero. But I get higher billing than him. And that's because lots of people have links to my website. If you want to do more than that, I suggest you run a thing called a log file analyzer. There's a good free one called Weblog Expert Lite. That's Lite. And see what search terms people use which get them to your site. And you'll probably have a shock. I found that by far the most common phrase that had got them to my site was waltz steps, how to dance the waltz, and similar phrases. Because I just happened to have a page called waltzing. Just as I've got a page on the rant step, I've got a page on probably hornpipe. It had never occurred to me that all these people would find my page. And if I really wanted to make money out of my site, I'd probably be selling waltz videos from that page. So that's the way to find out how people are getting to your site. And I've certainly never considered using Google things or anything else. You get all this junk mail that says, you want to see your website at the top of the listing? We can do it for you. No, they can't. They're lying to you. There's all sorts of trickery that people do to try and get up the ratings. And Google and the other search engines are constantly on the lookout for this. And you hear horror stories of people who've done this and they have a good business and suddenly Google changed their algorithm and they shoot down the listing and they go bust because nobody sees them anymore. And that's because they were basically modifying their site to target the way they thought Google would like it. And then Google said, oh no, you're just doing that because you think that's what we'll like. And they lost out considerably. That's not going to happen to me because I've got interesting content. And if Alison wants to come in and add anything more to that, please do.
No, thanks. That was great, Colin.
Okay, thanks, Alison.
I'm not going to pronounce this name correctly, but I think Erica asks, what's your experience with having interactive elements, a blog or a contact form on your website? And we talked a little bit about, one of the things I love about your website is that you include people's feedback in a very conversational way sometimes in your content. So I know that you have a variety of ways that people communicate with you about it. Can you talk about your decision and how you implemented that?
Yes. It came about because Hugh Stewart from Cambridge in England, who's also a computer man, said, can I make comments on your website? And I thought, I don't know how to do that. So I found out. And then I started putting a feedback button at the bottom of most of the pages. I think any feedback, good or bad, is important. You know that as a caller. I've certainly changed and added things as a result of feedback. A similar example is I've just created a new page called What is a Dancing Master? And before showing it to the world, I sent it out to the 4 lists that I subscribed to. And I got useful feedback from all of those, many parts of which I've incorporated on the page. And now the page is there. And it may well be that other people will use the feedback button to say what they think or to ask questions. If you click the feedback button, you'll see the message, this is designed for comments on the website, which will be available for everybody to read. So I hope people are aware of that before they say something silly. And I give them the alternative of emailing me. And then if someone emails me or writes something to one of the lists, I always ask whether I can publish it. Sometimes I put up a temporary page and send them the URL, and sometimes they're horrified and say, oh no, I didn't expect you to publish that. Nobody at my group will ever speak to me again. And they send me a toned down version. But there's not much feedback that I've actually deleted. I have that option because I wrote the site. And I got some spam and I deleted it. There are 1 or 2 odd things like, can you tell me where I can find a salsa class? And I think, so I wrote and said, I'm sorry, I can't. As you can see from my website, I'm involved in folk dancing. I recommend your local library. But most of the questions are sensible and I would try and give good answers.
Thank you. So one of the things that we talked about last week when I was chatting with you in advance of this was the question of permission. Victor Lindsay has asked, how do you address copyright concerns, especially if the author is difficult to contact? Have you ever had the experience of wanting to put something online that you can't contact the author of?
Yeah, some of them are dead. And first of all, people agonize about copyright. And the fact is, there's no money in this stuff. If someone rips off an Andrew Lloyd Webber song and puts it out on the CD, then of course his lawyers are going to be onto them, because you're talking big money there. No one is going to sue me because I put one of their dances on my website, because it'd cost far too much for both of us. So it's really not a problem. Yes, of course, I always try and ask people. And it's very rare that, I can't think of any case where someone has said, no, you can't. But it really isn't a big issue. Some of these, I mentioned that some of the dances were originally in my column in the English Dance and Song magazine. And I thought, well, if they were willing for me to publish it there, they're equally willing for me to publish it on my website. Since then, some of them have been published in books. There was at least one dance by Ken Alexander. Since then, he published it in his own book. So of course, I'm not going to copy that. And I had a thing on the page saying, if anyone objects to any of this, please let me know. And it was there for years. No one ever did. And eventually I took that bit off. So no, I really don't think it's a problem. I've certainly never had any problems with it.
So I'm going to ask you a couple more questions, and then I think we're going to start opening it up. This is more of a warning for everyone in the audience. I'm going to start opening it up to other people's questions, so think about your questions. Probably, I suspect that Colin and I will chat for about 15 more minutes with the questions I have left, so that's your 15-minute warning. So I have two sort of related questions, I think. One is a small question. Are there other caller websites that you find yourself using regularly that you find useful? And then maybe the sort of meta question behind that is, do you think that the internet has changed social folk dancing? And if so, how do you think it has?
Well, when I'm looking for a specific dance, I might go to a specific website, such as a Contra by Carrie Ravitz. I go to Susan de Guardiola's site, Capering and Kickery, for the early stuff. Dance Kaleidoscope in Australia has excellent animations of all kinds of dances. Very clever program, that. Regencydances.org. But actually, I get to many of these via a Google search, rather than thinking, oh, I'll look at Susan's site, for instance. And how do I think it's changed things? I think it's lowered the boundary to producing not very good dances. Because anyone can have a website these days. You can get free websites. You can use a content management system, which is also free. You don't need to know anything about HTML. And you can put your dances there. And I would say to those people, what makes this dance special? Why do you think this one is worth publishing? I was talking in the 5 things about what makes a good dance, what makes a bad dance. And there's lots of dances, particularly contras on the web, which work perfectly well. They work and they've got the obligatory partner swing and neighbor swing, but there's nothing special about them. I could have written them without really thinking very hard. So I would say to anyone putting dances on a website, just think first, what's special about this one? What makes it worthy of going on the website? Why do you think other people are going to want to read it and call it? Is that a good enough answer, or do you want more?
Well, it's a good answer, but I'm going to amend my question to reflect my more relentless optimism, which is, how do you think that the internet has improved social dance?
It's made things more widely available, of course. If a caller sees a dance and thinks, oh, that was good, and he didn't actually get the name, or he didn't know who it was by, or he wasn't quite sure of it. Chances are you can look it up on the web. And equally, I get people emailing me. I had an email a few days ago from a woman I know in Cambridge saying, Colin, there was a dance we danced on the riverbank a few years ago. I think it was for 7 couples. And there was a clever way of getting it back to your partner. Have you any idea what I'm talking about? And I said, yes, of course I do. It's called The Magnificent Seven by Bob Archer. Here's the instructions. And she wrote back and said, you are amazing. And I said, no, I've just been calling a long time. So the fact that we got the emails, which people forget is a part of the internet, but it really is, that's a major thing. That I can email you and ask you a question about something. I can email Susan de Guardiola or whoever and get an answer. And when I started, America was somewhere I had no contact with. I remember buying the first LP by Yankee Ingenuity, which I love, and it never occurred to me that one day I would meet these people and call dances with them. And okay, maybe that wasn't the internet, but yeah, the internet is an amazing thing. I'm still amazed. You can go into a search engine and it will search thousands of millions of websites and come up with what you want in 3 seconds.
Yeah.
That is great.
And you make the excellent point that email is a part of the internet and has massively changed, certainly the way that I interact with the dance community. Alan Winston reminds us about the shared wait lists. And I know that you're an active participant on several of them. And I think that the value of that list is sort of, for me, both the low-tech aspect, that it's simple to use, it's quick, but also it does connect you to individual people. You get many, many responses. And when we were talking about your incorporation of feedback earlier, and you mentioned your What is a Dancing Master page, you solicited feedback from all kinds of people very easily by using those mailing lists that's now in that website page.
Yeah, that's right. And because it's a website page, they can immediately see what I've done, and maybe they will say, well, I think you should have said more about this, or I don't think you should have said that. And that is my choice whether I agree with them or not. But the point is, it's immediate. Mm-hmm. And of course, the other immediacy is videos of dances. Now, that's not necessarily a good thing, because there are a lot of awful videos out there on YouTube. Some of them are just plain wrong. There's a video of White Wheat, which is a dance by Hazel Moyer. It's a really bad video. They go totally wrong. They're not doing it well. There's a woman dancing as a man in the top step, which I'm not saying is a bad thing at all, but it just makes it harder for you to see what's going on. When I emailed Hazel about it, she said, oh no, they've done it all wrong. Here are the instructions. And I said, if I were you, I would ask them to take it down, because it's doing no favors to you or the dance or English country dance in general, but she's too nice to do that. But there are good videos there. The danger is that then becomes the de facto standard. And I know there are some balls in the States where not only do they send out all the instructions, they send out links to videos. And everyone assumes that that's the way it is always going to be done. And if it's me leading the ball, they'd have to say, but Colin Hume doesn't actually do it this way. But other than that, everyone just thinks that's the way it is. And English folk dance isn't like that. Scottish is. You get a video of a Scottish folk dance by a display team, a performance group, and everyone knows this is correct. But English, you get my version, you get Andrew Shaw's version. They may be different. I'm not saying Andrew is wrong. He's not saying I'm wrong. We've looked at the original wording and we've come up with different opinions. And they're equally valid.
I feel grateful to Alan Winston for having already asked this question, because I have to ask it now. He asked, do you have any thoughts about providing videos of dances to accompany directions? And then Margaret asked in a chat, what would make a good video in your opinion?
Okay, no, I have no intention of making videos. I don't have a video camera. I don't have a group of people that will do the dance for me. And I I would like to think that I write my instructions so clearly that there's no ambiguity, but I know that's not true. There was one person who wrote to me and said, when you say so-and-so, do you mean this or do you mean that? And I thought, oh no, I don't mean either of those. I mean this third thing, which is why it's good that I can amend things on the web. And occasionally on one of my dances, you will see, if you pick this up before 2012, I have the wrong corners crossing first. It should be like this. Please correct your cards. So no, I'm not going to create my own videos. What makes a good video? First of all, they have to dance it correctly, which you would think was obvious, but is by no means certain. Secondly, you want a long take. You get videographers who are very good at doing all the technical stuff, but they've got this MTV approach of every 5 seconds you change the view. And you think, oh, where is he? Oh no, that's from the other end. Oh no, that's a different set. And you can't see what's going on. I would like a video probably taken a bit from above. I'm not a professional videographer, but from above so that you can see the whole set, not just the top couple. You can see the shape of the thing. And I would probably like to see the whole dance twice through. And then maybe you can change the angle and show what it looks like from the side. That wouldn't bother me. As a caller, if I can see it once straight through from a fairly high angle, then I've got it. And as a dancer as well, I would think, yes, I understand that. With a bit of study, I could dance that. What else makes a good video? Well, from my point of view, a good clear tune, because often I pick up the tunes from videos, and there are these really bad videos. I'm not going to mention who they're by, but there's a hell of a lot of them. But the tune is very clear because the band don't do clever stuff. Whereas if you listen to Bare Necessities, it's wonderful music, but you really don't know how the tune goes because they're all improvising like mad. And so I couldn't write it out. Now that's probably a very personal preference. Most people do not learn their tunes from videos. Most people would not be able to write out the music and chord it by watching the video. Let me just think if there's anything else that makes a good video. And it would be nice if the dancers appear to be enjoying themselves. And from my point of view, it would be nice if they weren't all taking it so seriously and saying, this is an English dance video and we are dancing it beautifully, because then that comes across as totally artificial. And I really don't want to see that. I want to see people who are enjoying it, but doing it well. And there was a video that I showed, again on Darlene's 5 Things, of a group of dancers, not a performance group, not even people who necessarily knew they were being videoed, but they're dancing once a night. They're doing it with guts. It was a zesty Playford session. They're really enjoying it, but they're also dancing it well. You could watch that and say, yes, I understand the dance. So that's a good video as far as I'm concerned.
Mm-hmm. Eric has just asked the question that I was wondering about, or just contemplating, which is that you have different purposes for videos, right? That when we started our university group, I was less interested in having videos to share that were instructive and much more interested in finding videos that conveyed a sense of fun, particularly to young people. And so there are 2 distinct kinds of video, it seems to me. And at least in the States, you get a lot more contra dance videos that are about conveying joy and excitement and fun, and far fewer English or Playford videos that seem to have that goal. They seem much more focused on instruction.
Yes, and as I say, they're very serious about it.
Mm-hmm.
You see, in the States, contra dancing is something you drift into. You find out it's happening at your local hall and you go along and think, oh, this is great. English is something where you've made a conscious decision. I want to dance English. And therefore, there's this aspect of, we want to do it properly. This is serious stuff, no laughing. And that is not my approach at all. I think if people in the States just got off this elevated level and thought this is something to enjoy, and if they, here we go again, if they danced more and walked less and and enjoyed it, then they would get videos which are more encouraging to people who have never experienced and just think, would I be interested in this? Because you look at some of these serious videos and you think, oh, is this serious? Oh, I couldn't do that. My local club, the Hitchin Staplers, go to the occasional fair or some open air event and do a display. And they don't do it as we are a display team, we have practiced this, we're in costume. They look like ordinary people. And the way it works is they have a caller there. And the caller says, this is what we do at our club. And she will walk it through once. Okay, the dancers all know the dance, but it's a good reminder. And then she calls it while they're doing it. And people see this is not people from the 17th century in their finery doing incomprehensible moves. This is ordinary people enjoying it. And I think that's much more likely to get people to come along. And then you have some people in the crowd saying, if you're interested, look, here's a leaflet about our club. We meet every Monday evening at so-and-so hall. And I don't know how effective it is, but I believe that's the right approach.
This conversation is reminding me of our comparison between how you organize your dances in physical space and how I organize mine. And of course mine, because I mostly call in the States, are separated into contra and English, and yours have very different categories. But Cheryl Yenter asked if you had an efficient way to organize dances so that they're easily available to you, which is going to be my transition into. Will you talk a little bit about your dance organizing software?
Well, yes, in a word.
And also about categories.
Yeah. Let me just think about what I'm going to say. Oh, yeah, the first thing I will say is I am going to create a video. I created my first video for the 5 things for Darlene about my website. Today I was kidding myself that I would create one about my dance organizer. And I got as far as writing out some notes and talking it through once. And I haven't had a chance to actually create it, but I'm planning to do so tomorrow. So if you look on my website tomorrow, on the homepage, there may well be a link that says, see my video about my dance organizer. So yes, it's a program which I originally wrote for myself. It runs on Windows. It will run on a Windows tablet. I've got a couple of customers on that. And it will run, I understand, on a Mac, because it's possible to run Windows programs under a Windows-like environment called Crossover Mac. If you Google Crossover Mac, you'll find it. And they charge you £32, $40 for just one version, which will never expire, no upgrades, no support. That's all you're going to need. And obviously I can't test it because I don't have a Mac, but I'd be surprised if my dance organizer didn't work, because it doesn't use any obscure operating system functions. And I believe the latest version will still run on Windows 95, which is what I wrote it on. So yes, I would love to tell you about my dance organizer, and you're just going to have to stop me when you've had enough, because I can talk about this for ages. So let me share my screen with you and show you what it's all about. Hold on just a moment. Share screen. Dance organizer. Share. Can you see that?
Possibly it'll take a second.
Wait a minute. No, it doesn't like me switching. I have to do a stop share, then a share screen. That's silly. I don't see the point of that, because it's all on my computer.
There we go.
Okay, so this is my dance organizer. There are 2 main tabs. Yeah, I do need to wear my glasses. Sorry, you're not looking at me. You're looking at the dance organizer, aren't you? What a vain fellow. This is the events tab. This shows an event. This one is the last thing that I called for the Friends of Cecil Sharp House. So at the top, you've got information about the event, who it's run by, what it is, when it is, who the band is, and other things. And then the main part is what's actually in the session, mainly dances. But also, I've got a note there to myself that I need to leave home at 12:45 for a 2:15 start. There's a heading for a break. There's a heading that says next time. So that's the event screen. If you want to know more about one of these dances, well, first of all, there's some information in a condensed form. So the punch bowl, for instance. If I hover over L, you see that's level. So it's level 6, which is fairly complicated. B is number of times called. I've called it 43 times. R, number of times recently called, only once. I last called it in May 2019. I've never called it for this event, or sorry, for this group, this organization. So no one's going to complain that, you did that last time. It's by Henry Playford, and it's from the Dancing Master 1701. If you want to know more about it, you click on the dance, you double click. Now we go to the other tab, the dances tab, which again has a bit at the top, which is mainly information about this dance, some of which we've already seen, but there's more. It's in the key of G. I don't care about that, but Americans do. It's in 3/time. It's got its own tune. There's no swings in it. Oh, what a surprise. And then the main part is the instructions, or whatever I choose to put in there. In this case, I've got the instructions as I would call it. I've also got the original wording, so that if someone asks me while I'm calling it, I've got that there. And I've got a mention of the Pat Shaw version, because that's a bit different from mine. You can right click on the instructions. This is how you put the instructions in. This goes into an internal editor, or you can use Microsoft Word or WordPad, whatever you want to use. It's very flexible. Mine is arranged so that it fits on 3x5 cards, which is what I use, what I used to use. So card 1 is that much, card 2 is that much, and then at the bottom of the card, it's Henry Playford, and it's my interpretation. And I could go into all sorts of complications about what all this does, and you don't want to know. Or you certainly don't want to know at the moment. So that's the dance. All right.
I didn't mean to interrupt. I was just going to
No, go ahead.
If you had been asked that question that the women asked about Magnificent Seven, and you couldn't remember off the top of your head, which I realize you're going to have to play act.
Yeah.
How is there a way that you can go in here and say, I want to see just, dances for 7 couples or people or
Oh yeah. Yeah. On the dances tab, you will see that there is formation or format. If I right click on that, these are all the formats that I use. Again, this is flexible. You can set it up if you want it any way you like. And I have one for 6+ couples. I don't have one for 7 couples because I don't have many 7 couples. But if I right click on that, then I get the grid view of the dances. And these are all the dances for 6+. I could actually even search for 7 couples? If I go into the instructions and right click on that, no, I didn't mean that, and click on filter and then say 7 couples,
search on the music for 7 times by 32.
Yeah, I could do that, but I've actually got 2 dances for 7 couples here, both by Bob Archer. This one is called the Edinburgh Snake, and the next one, which is the one she was looking for, is the Magnificent Seven. So I could find it fairly easily. I could have done what I originally tried and go to the 6+, and then just look at all of those, which would not take me that long, and find it.
So this
Another
just-
example.
Oops,
Go
sorry.
on, sorry.
We just have a bunch of questions coming in, so I will let you continue, but you can have these in the back of your head or maybe answer them quickly. Jim
I
Morris
want-
asks if your database feeds into your website or vice versa. If you make a change here, would it show up in the dance instructions on your website? And then Sis Hinkle asks, is the dance editor just free text or are there fields?
Okay, yes,
Eric
the
is
dance,
asking how you decide how difficult a dance is, which is maybe a separate question.
these are several questions. The dance is just free text. Yes, I have a standard format. So if, for instance, I create a new dance, I'm going to call it XXX, and the format is 3 couples, and the style is, oh, it's this Hinkle, we better make it general, not playful. And it's going to be at whatever level, I don't care. And if I just right click on that, okay, it warns me the dance level is blank. It takes me into the editor, and there's the information I've given it. It's 3 couples long ways. I haven't said whether it's a jig or a reel or how many times through. If I'd given all that, it might, there's a 3 by 32 bar jigs. And my format is that I assume it might well be 48 bars because it's much easier to just delete that and go back to the standard 32 bars. So that is my standard format, but it's totally free format. You can just say, I want to do this. And there's your instructions. Save that. Come out again. Oh, there's no music in the text. Never mind. It's free format. You can do what you like with it. Now the question, does it feed into my website? No, it doesn't. The dances on my website are to some extent hand coded. Yes, of course, I do use this information. So if I decide that I want to add a particular dance, like the wrong star, to my website, then I can copy all of that and paste that into my website. I've got the instructions. I still do a lot of it manually because the website is not database driven. I do have another website, which is called, yeah, I'm getting tired now, which is called barndances.org.uk. And that is driven by a database. And so I can update it online and it is immediately reflected on the thing. But no, the quick answer is no, there is no feed into my website from the dance organizer. And what was the third question?
There was a question about how you decide a difficulty level, and then Eric has asked yet another question, so I'm going to add 2 for you, which he wants to know about searching and searching by move. And
Searching by
he
what?
says,
Oh, by move, yeah.
yeah, so he says, can I search for a dance that has such and such a move at the end so I can blend it into a following dance which begins with that move, or can I search for a dance that has move 1 but does not have move 2?
Oh,
It's suddenly a job interview.
I know I've forgotten the first question, I'm sorry.
It doesn't matter. Let's answer that one.
Right. You can certainly search for, say, all dances which contain square through. No, didn't mean that. Filter. I'm on the instructions. Filter. Through. And it's found 20 dances with square through in. It's given you by default this list, but you can click on any one of those. And it's even given you the thing in red, in capitals, so you can see it. But no, I certainly cannot do, can I have a dance that ends in a square through? If you're interested in contras, I do have a separate thing. Is Eric interested in contras, yes or no?
Yes, he is.
Yes, he is. I have let's find an event which is a contra, and then I will show you how this works. So let's find an event which has contra in the title. Contra dance. I haven't called many of those. Now, in events, I can say test contra. And this shows me which figures appear in the dances that I've got. So there's a balance and swing partner in those two. This was in the UK. If I was looking for one in the States, it would be very different. Let me find one. No, let me find one in the States. Come on. This is ridiculous. I must have more things called contra dance, surely.
I think one of the ones on the list that came up was in Philadelphia.
Oh,
We did this.
I'll tell you why it's not coming up. When you buy or when you download a test version of my dance organizer, which is what I'm using, you get all the dances which I've called for the last 2 years. And this comes before that. But if there's one in Philadelphia, then let's look at that. Oh, yeah. Thank you. That's more like it. Thank you. I'm glad you're more awake than I am. So if we now test contra, a bit more like it. So you will see that the partner swing and a partner swing. This was obviously not just a contra dance. Or maybe it was, I don't know. There's ladies' chains. And it'll also show you what there isn't. So I look at this and I think, oh, I really do need a contra corner, surely. Click on that. And it shows me the dances which have contra corners in. And the reason that I'm not seeing many hits there is, again, because this is the publicly available version, which does not have the instructions for copyright dances. So All the Way to Beckenham is one of mine. Country Corners Canon is by Ron Buchanan, but it's on my website. Sackett's Harbour is traditional. So normally you would expect a bigger list there. And I can click on Sackett's Harbour and I think, oh yeah, that's a good one. I'll add that to the program. So now it's there. So you can add figures. I can again say, what about Petronella? Really need a Petronella. Oh, there's Looking for Love Again, which is by Carrie Ravitz, which is on his website. So I feel it's fine for me to put the instructions there. Let's add that. No, I didn't want to replace, I want to add it. Okay, now you go back to the program and you see that we've added 2 extra dances somewhere. Sackett's Harbour, Looking for Love Again, and so on. So that's not really a yes to Eric's question. You can certainly see what figures there are, and you can see which you're overusing and which you're underusing. And you can immediately fix that and then look at the program again. But as for searching for something with something at the end, no, never occurred to me. You're on your own there, Eric.
Louise, could I just put a plus to the dancing master, the dance organizer, that you can also link it to recorded music as well, Colin, which is a really big plus from my point of view, which you haven't mentioned yet. I'd hate for it to be forgotten.
Yes, you're right. Yes, you can. I will not attempt to demonstrate that because, as I said, this is the publicly available version, which is it doesn't have any music on it. But yes, I don't normally call to recorded music, but I was calling in Germany last year, or was it the year before? Oh, excuse me, I'm just being offered a cup of tea. Very English.
I feel Darlene would approve.
Oh, she would, and some biscuits. So I was calling in Germany to recording music. Oh. So I did a lot of work on recording music. And yes, you can now have all your recordings there. You can link a particular recording to a particular dance. You can have more than one choice of a recording for a dance. Equally, you can use the same recording for several dances because it's a good recording. And then once you're there, oh yeah, I didn't show you the play screen. Let's show you that. Let's say I've got this program and hang on now, the cup of tea is getting in the way. I got this, now the mouse has disappeared. Very technical this. So I got this program and now I'm going to call it from my laptop. So I click that big square there. Now this is the view I use for my laptop. Now I can read it without my glasses on. You can actually change the size of the font, and I can just use the right arrow key to go to the next one. And okay, look, the instructions aren't there because this is the publicly available version. Here's one of mine, the instructions are there. And you can page down. Look. You're going to press that. You can press page down to go to the next bit and page up again. And you can go through them all. And the bit I can't show you is that if you've got recorded music, that will also appear there. There'll be a big thing up here saying play. When you click that, it'll play the music and the play will turn to a pause. You can speed it up and slow it down, assuming it's on CD. You can change the volume. You can fade it out. You can start it at a particular point. Basically, you can do whatever you would want to do, I would hope. And if you find something you can't do, and you pay for your copy, which is only $80 or £50, then I will do my level best to put it in, and you will find that my fixes come a lot quicker than asking Microsoft or Apple to fix something.
Claire has asked, what app plays the music? What does it connect to?
You have a choice of using either an internal player or an external player. I'm using an internal player. I don't remember how it works, but it works for me. That's all I need to know. I'm sorry, I don't remember, but I do know that if you want to use an external player, you can do that.
Outstanding. I think we only have about 15 minutes left. Oh, Sis says, do you connect it to an actual CD player or can you use MP3s? But I think, Bernie, you use MP3s, right?
Yes, I use MP3s, yeah. And I just have everything on this organizer and I just run my whole event just from this organizer. It's fabulous. And I can say that the support is great and very quick as well.
Thank you, Annie. And yes, you can also use CDs, and you can tell it what track you want. You would have that in this same place. What it cannot guarantee is that you put the right CD into the drive. That's your problem.
Outstanding. All right, we have about 15 minutes left. Several people have asked that I return to that question of how do you decide how difficult a dance is when you're putting that ranking?
Oh yeah. Hold on, I don't even want this yet. Now I see the disadvantage of eating biscuits while you're on Zoom. So, how do I decide what level? First of all, this is totally flexible. These are my levels. You can have whatever you like. But if I right click on level, you will see what I'm using. 1 is a children's dance, 2 is a barn dance, 8 is a workshop, 9 is an advanced workshop. How do I decide? I don't always get it right. You'll find a lot of them are medium level. In other words, this is a dance that I could call to a club in England. Most of them will be okay with it. If I'm calling at a club, which I know is not particularly good, then I would use low-level dances. Oh no, even at a good club, I don't want to hit them at the same level all the time. I would do simple dances. I might even throw in the Gay Gordons, which is level 2. Why not? Just because it's a low level doesn't mean they don't want to do it. How do I decide? It's guesswork. And sometimes I think, whoa, I've got that as level 7. Or no, more likely I've got that as level 6. It's much more complicated than that. That's an advanced one. So then I change it. Very simple. I just think, oh no, looking for love again isn't level 7, it's level 6. Save. And that will be reflected in the program. But I do not have any magic way of determining what level a dance is. Gary Rudman has his level, which he calls the estimated challenge of the teaching something or other. Hey, I call it a level. But he says, this is just my opinion. You may find it much easier to call this dance than to call that dance, even though I think they're both the same level. So, sorry sis, no magic formula, trial and error.
I do want to turn it over to people's questions, and I don't necessarily have to be reading them for you. If you want to ask a question, I'm going to encourage you to just unmute yourself and jump in. As I said at the beginning, we're pretty informal around here, and I don't think that we're going to be overwhelmed, so people can work around each other a little bit. I'm going to give it a couple of seconds to see if anyone has a question. Anyone want to jump in?
I have a question, if I can, if I'm not hogging, yeah. Sorry. So Colin, I want to go back to the original about callers having a website. So I don't choreograph dances. I don't even interpret dances. And I'm still kind of at the beginning stage of my calling journey. So for someone like me, what would the point of having a website be? Would you encourage me to have one? I'm very much of that community thought of dance, so I'm not looking for bookings or anything. Is there any point?
Well, I think you have to decide what would be the reason why I would create a website. You might do it to make yourself better known, because I know you're a good caller, but you're not as well known as me yet. It'll come. And you might say that having a website gives you a presence. And if someone says, we're thinking of booking Bernie Culkin, do you know her? Someone else would say, oh yes, I know her. She's got a website. It's called bernieculkin.com. Have a look there and you'll find out more about her. So that could be a reason. As you say, you don't write or interpret the dances. So, and I can't see any particular reason for you to put other people's dances on your website. But you might want to write articles about how you see dancing, how it affects the dance community, your experiences as the webmaster of patshaw.info, how you got into calling and dancing. I don't know. Really, it's up to you. If you can't think of a good reason for having a website, then I would say don't.
Thank you.
God, I can't believe this, a room full of callers and no one wants to speak.
Darlene has asked me to ask a question for her. And I should say I'm happy to do that for anyone who wants me to. So we were talking earlier about how open you are to feedback and how you leave most of it up, but you had said that occasionally you delete things. And there was also some discussion, I am elaborating somewhat on the question here, but there was also some discussion earlier about people being targeted based on information on their website and kind of getting attacks. Have you ever had to handle sort of hostile approaches to your website of any form?
I don't think so. People were writing and saying, I don't agree with you. Well, that's not hostile.
But you haven't had people being abusive or?
No.
Kind of a follow-up question, which is, as a dance organizer in our local group, when we hire a caller to come in to a weekend or something, it's really great if they have a website which says something about them, which I can just borrow and put into our newsletter, or, you know. So yeah, I would encourage. I'm surprised sometimes by callers. I think they're well known and we travel a lot, but it's hard to get information about them.
Yeah, that's a good point. And they would probably say, Well, I'm well known. I don't need a website. And Tony Parks doesn't need a website because everyone knows him. And similarly on the English side, Jean Murrow doesn't need a website. Bruce Hamilton doesn't need a website because they're known. And I would guess that if you Googled them, you would find other websites which have information about them because they've called there, so you could pick up what you need. So I suspect these callers will say, why should I go to the hassle of setting up a website and deciding what to put onto it when other people can talk about me perfectly well?
Colin, we've had a couple of questions that are not about the dance organizer, so at the risk of forcing you to pull it back up again later, I'm gonna go back to speaker view and ask you to stop sharing your screen.
Yeah, sure.
And I'm going to ask a question that Sharon Schenkel asked, which is a very on-point question. Are you on social media at all?
No, I'm not. I don't have time for that. And I'm not convinced that it's useful. Sorry. I think it can waste an awful lot of time. And I don't feel the need to be, I suppose, because I've got a website. So if I've got something to say, that's where I say it. And if people want to know what I think, that's where they can come and look. So I've never had the need to be on social media. I do know that I belong to a writers group in Cambridge, and the woman who used to be in charge of that says, oh, Colin, you're not on Facebook. That's where we do all the talking about it. And okay, so I may miss out there, but I also miss out on a lot of time wasting. You get people who are saying, oh, I'm really bored this morning. I got up late and the cat's made a mess on the floor. And I think, why do I want to hear this? And that seems to be a lot of the Facebook stuff. Maybe that's not true, but that was my experience, literally.
Mm-hmm. And how many hours a week do you think you spend on your website?
It comes and goes. At the moment, I've been doing an awful lot. As I said, I've been writing this page on what is a dancing master. I'm now writing a page on Scottish dances for English dancers, because I think there's a lot of good Scottish dances out there that English dancers know nothing about and English callers know nothing about. So I'm writing a page on those. But no, there are times when I don't do much on it. The other thing that I work on is my editor. It's called Web Edit. My other download, which is free of charge. I'm always using that and I'm always updating it. That takes an awful lot of time. On the other hand, I'm a programmer. I love programming. So that's the time that I spend when Sharon is on social media saying, hey, I'm stuck in the Virgin Islands, isn't it terrible?
Does anybody else have any questions they want to ask?
Thanks, Colin. The reason I asked about social media is because I think you might get more negativity if you're on social media than if you just have your own website. That was where I was going with that question.
Okay, thank you, Sharon. That's a good point, and that's why I'm not on social media.
All right.
So why are you on social media?
Oh, that's a good. Probably many reasons to see what people are doing, but not about their cat throwing up or something.
Okay.
But we know what she had for lunch.
Sometimes I do show what I've had for lunch. That's true, because I cook and I bake.
Uh-huh. Okay, I don't feel the need to do this, but if you do, enjoy, as they say in America.
I knew it would happen. As soon as I asked you to close the dance organizer, Mady asks, is there a way to import large amounts of the data if you have, for example, your past gigs organized in Excel?
Yes, there is. And I don't think I need to show that. But
No.
yes, there is a way of importing from a spreadsheet or from a database. It assumes that you can export in CSV format, comma-separated values. And I'm quite sure Excel can do that.
Yep.
And yes, I don't know whether anyone's ever used it. And if you do use it and it doesn't work, I'll fix it. But basically, you get two lists One is the list of the files in your CSV. Sorry, one is the list of fields in your CSV file. The other is a list in the dance organizer. And you have to say that one there is the dance title. That one there is the formation. That one there is the something else. Then you can import the dances. And similarly with events, what it will not do is combine the two. That's up to you. I'm not that clever, and I'm not being paid enough to do that. Yes, in principle, yes, you can certainly import things from a database or a spreadsheet. And as I said before, you can run the trial version for long enough, or I hope I said this, long enough for you to decide that either you want to pay the $80 or you want to get rid of it. And at that stage, you have probably tried whether you can import things, and you can see whether this is going to be a good idea or whether it's going to be so much work that you just stick with what you've got before.
Anybody else? I think we're winding down. We have about 3 minutes left, so if no one is leaping to unmute themselves, I'm going to ask the question that I asked you after I first saw your dance organizer, which is one of the advantages to me, and I'm a historian, so I have a predilection for physical objects and materials and archives. So when I saw your incredible archive of information about your calling career in this software, my question to you was, have you thought about archiving it, and could you see a way for that to happen? Especially if many callers are using this, it suddenly seems like in this country something I would want the Library of Congress to be collecting. Maybe the British Library should inherit your dance organizer.
Well, there's two things here. One is you're talking about specifically my copy and all the things that I have called since I started the dance organizer. The other is it going to be available to people once I've stopped running my website? The answer to the second one is CDSS are now sponsoring my website. And so, provided they know what they're doing, which I believe they do, people will still be able to download the dance organizer. And I will give them instructions, which I haven't done yet, on how to let people pay the money and be given a password to free up their version. As for my version, I'd never thought of that. And I can see that maybe someone in 100 years' time will say, I wonder what dances Colin Hume called in his career. And I have no idea how to go about that, except, again, possibly giving CDSS my version of the dance organizer and saying to them, this is what I've called. So if someone else wants to look at it, maybe you can make it available. And that's about as far as I can go with that question.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. I want to say thank you for spending so much time with us this evening and for agreeing to do this workshop. It's been a pleasure to talk to you this afternoon and also in preparation for it. There have been so many great comments in the chat. Thank you all for your contributions in there. And if you want to chat for a little while, we'll hang out and let people do that casually. Thank you again, Colin. It's been really wonderful talking to you.
And thank you for organizing it, and Rebecca as well. And I hope it won't be too soon before we can be running a workshop in London again together.
I hope so. I agree. All right. Thank you everyone for coming, and do feel free to unmute yourselves, chat, thank Colin, etc.